Hey there! Today we are going to be talking about making a content plan as a photographer, specifically for Instagram. So I feel like I have been seeing so many people, especially photographers, just talking about how just overwhelmed they are with the thought of showing up on Instagram, doing that consistently, feeling pressured to do that, but also knowing how much success you can have if you really are doing this consistent. So as someone who used Instagram as a really significant way of growing my photography business and eventually going full-time, leaving my corporate job and being able to do this full-time, I 100% understand just how overwhelming this can feel and just how much pressure and just kind of that icky feeling of feeling like you have to show up and you have to be personal, but maybe you're not comfortable with that. And how do you stick to a sustainable posting plan and what new trend is coming out? And I 100% get it. And for me, when I was working at my corporate job, I honestly felt so drained afterwards that I felt like I barely had any energy to invest in a social media platform and try to grow my business on it. And I really quickly realized that I needed some kind of system if this was going to be sustainable for me. So I'm sharing that system with you today, and really my hope behind this video is that you find some kind of takeaway, or if you want to just use the system, that's completely fine. But I really want to help you just overcome some of that overwhelm and start to come up with a system that feels sustainable to you and that you're not dreading having to do every week. So I'm gonna go ahead and dive in, and I'm actually going to cover different features of Instagram and how I've basically created a plan to help me actually sustainably show up in all of these different features in a way that's actually consistent. So let's go ahead and break this down. So I'm going to talk about Reels, feed post, stories, and then just creating more original content. So carousel posts, sometimes I do these in Canva to create more kind of infographic type post, but that's definitely not something I'm doing every week. This is more of my Instagram cornerstone content that maybe I'll pin or maybe I will promote a good bit. So let's go ahead and get started with Reels, because I feel like Reels is definitely, everyone knows this, it's the fastest way to reach a cold audience, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. So this came out, I think 2020 is when I saw this surge in Reels, and it's only gotten more and more popular. And for me personally, I can definitely point to Reels 100% and say this is where a certain inquiry came from, because you can see if someone followed you from your Reel, it'll actually say that on Instagram, so-and-so followed you from your Reel. And then if I get an inquiry from that person, now I know that's how they found me, right? So let's go ahead and dive into Reels and just some ways to make this a little bit more doable if you're struggling there. If you are specifically a wedding photographer or a portrait photographer or someone who offers any type of service, batching your B-roll content is going to be huge. So I have a folder on my phone called B-roll videos, and basically I am constantly adding to this folder. I'm constantly saving new videos to this folder, and I'm always trying to increase that library, and that is basically what I'm going to pick from as far as videos goes. So this is actually a huge advantage for us guys, because we don't necessarily have to be standing in front of a tripod and dancing or pointing or whatever. I have never done that. But I've also had Reels take off and get like almost 1 million views. I actually just had one I posted 2 months ago that is still getting traction and still bringing me follows and inquiries and leads. So just to put that out there, go ahead and take that pressure off yourself. You don't have to do these trendy like dances. I have never done any of those. So a cool thing about how we can showcase what we do is that a lot of this is happening behind the scenes, or it's happening on the actual event day that have already been created. We don't have to create that piece of the puzzle. All we have to do is capture it. So my second shooter, my husband, he will typically take a few videos of me on wedding days, and he kind of knows what to be looking for. So it's always if there's a lull, he's not taking videos if we're 5 minutes for portraits because it's about to rain or anything like that. But if we have a little bit of time, if we're running early, he already knows, and we shoot every wedding together. So he'll capture some behind the scenes content for me as I'm posing couple or posing bridal party or just taking photos, any type of B-roll in that sense. The second thing we'll do is when we capture the reception room, again, only if there's a little bit of time for this, we're not cutting it to our actual time of photographing, is I will take a quick just film around of the room. So just take my phone and just do a quick scan of the room, maybe a couple closer up details. And I actually like this too because it reminds me of what the room actually looked like. So when I'm editing photos, I have an idea of what the space looked like just from a phone perspective. So again, not that that does anything really substantial for my editing, but it's just interesting to kind of see what that contrast looks like. So also another way this is really nice is if the couple did not have a videographer, they love getting these videos, just little clips here and there that maybe they can use on their social media feeds, maybe on their Instagram story. And it's actually really interesting because wedding content creators are a thing now. That's something you can actually hire for your wedding day. So it's actually serving our couples if we can give them a couple little clips and they just have them and keep them on their phone and they like them. But this is how I started creating my B-roll library of videos. So again, quick scans of the room, some shots from my second shooter, just really, really simple. And then I also started taking just B-roll clips of me working at my desk. So really, really simple. I set up a tripod, so like over there, and just sit at my desk and I'm editing or I'm emailing or I'm on a call and I just have this running. Super, super simple. So no need to overcomplicate this. Again, we actually have an advantage because we don't have to dance in front of a camera to get clients. We don't have to actually create content necessarily from scratch. We can't do that if we want to. If we want to do videos talking to the camera, kind of like I am, talking about tips regarding what we do, our industry, things our clients might want to know, we can definitely do that. But if we don't, the content is kind of there because of the events that we are photographing. So having these buckets, now that we have those, we can start to create reels with them. So what I do every week, I just sit down on Monday and spend maybe an hour doing this, very, very simple, is I will just layer some text over that B-roll. So just something simple like, I'll just do like a really recent one. So this video was 5 tips for the week of your wedding, and it looks like it has about 14,000 plays on it. So again, not every video will perform this well. The next one has like 2,000 plays. The next one has like 1,000, but about 10 saves it looks like. But basically, the more you're putting content out there, the more you have a chance for it to perform really, really well and to bring in new people. So if one of my reels doesn't do well, that's okay. If 10 of them in a row didn't perform very well, that's a little bit different. But it also just depends on if you're wanting to just grow your audience or if you're wanting to specifically target new clients. So if you're wanting to grow your audience, you can make reels that are a little bit more general to your industry. But if I'm wanting to target specific clients in a specific area, then I'm gonna make content very, very specific. So something like 10 tips for the week of your wedding, that can capture a pretty wide audience, right? It could be a bride in California, it could be a bride in Canada, it could be a bride anywhere. Or 10 of my favorite wedding venues in Columbus, Ohio, and why. That would be really targeting a bride that's in that city specifically. So that's just a quick example of what I would do in either situation. Really, when it comes to just starting to post reels or just starting to be consistent with reels, maybe you've posted some here and there, you want to be more consistent, maybe you want to experiment and just see what happens. Start with making that B-roll library, and then in another folder, so maybe a notes folder on your phone, start just writing down things or typing out things that you think could be of value to whoever it is you're serving. If it's a couple, if it's a bride specifically, if it is just something wedding related, whatever it is, start just writing this out. So the example of 5 tips for the week of your wedding, that's something that I feel like most people would know, but actually, clearly the 100 people that saved that don't know that, right? Or maybe they just want to refer back to it. So I've noticed people like list style content a lot. They like things that are very, attention span is so short now. So anything that's bulleted. So 10 guest experience ideas or 5 things to tell your bridesmaids, just things that are very concise, not necessarily a long story about something that they might be bored about. Honestly, even if it's in paragraph format and it has the potential to lose attention, I would say try to bullet this out as much as you can. Even if you're taking bullet points and then expanding on them more and more in your caption, that's fine. But to catch the attention, definitely something that feels more of that listicle style format. So to go from that, let's talk about feed posts. So not reels, just static posts. So this is so interesting to me because I have seen some feed posts perform really, really well, and then some feed posts just kind of tank. So what I do for feed posts is every quarter I will go back into my gallery software. So I'll go in, I'll scroll that gallery, and I will pick 5 of the absolute, like my favorite images that I feel really speak to the type of person I want to work with, and start to organize those images in what I call a best of folder. So this isn't necessarily like the prettiest or the most styled or anything like that. These are images that when I think about my client and what they would love to see, these are the images that I want to show them. So for me, that's images that are really effortless, they're elegant, they're joy-filled, they're timeless but not boring, because a lot of my couples really care about that. So I think about candid moments, so moments that you can really feel. So they're not necessarily perfect, but there's something that my brides would really, really value. So I go back, I start to put those images in a folder, and then every quarter I update this. So I have all of these images that I absolutely love, and then I just, again, every 3 months I go back, I go through galleries, and sometimes I look through even older galleries with just a new set of eyes, and sometimes I'll even pull a couple more. So thinking about captions for those, I personally am one of those people, I actually really enjoy writing, so that's something that's actually fun for me. But if you don't enjoy writing, like the majority of people I know, go back to that notes folder that you created for your reels. So those lists, those things that you thought of that brides might have questions about, you can use those exact same ideas, those exact same prompts in your feed post, but just maybe talk about it in a different way or word it in a different way. Maybe make it longer, maybe make it shorter. The fact is, people aren't paying as close attention to your post as you think they are. Now, I'm not saying post 5 things I loved seeing couples do at weddings on Monday in a reel, and then on Tuesday post the exact same thing in a feed post. That's not what I'm saying. So vary this up a little bit. But ideally, the biggest thing that's going to make Instagram actually doable for you is categorizing this, starting to organize these pieces of content, because again, you have way more than you think you probably do. Okay, and then organizing these feed posts as well as any feed posts that maybe you want to use as a cover for a reel so that it appears in your homepage. So I personally use Planoly. I've used it for years. I love it. I know some people like Later and some people like Plan. Me personally, I really like Planoly. It works for me, and it's really simple to just see for more of a bird's eye view just what those visuals look like together. Okay, so now let's talk about stories. So again, I do the same thing for stories as I do with my reels and my feed posts. Is I will batch a lot of these as well. Sometimes I capture something on the day and post it later in the day. I never post in real time. I only post after I've left a certain place. This is just something I'm more comfortable with. But I take a lot of photos that are maybe earlier in the week, maybe at my desk earlier in the week, all on the same day, and then I just spread them out. So again, that's my little secret. But for example, if I want to share what I'm working on that week and I have a few photos sitting at my computer with my coffee, I might take that photo at different times throughout the month and just save them and then just post them. So I'm not being disingenuous about what I'm doing, but I have taken that photo. Like, yes, I'm sitting at my desk, but the photo isn't from that instance. So I do batch some of my stories as well. And the thing with stories is these can be so much more off the cuff and a little bit more just real life, So yeah, sometimes I will post just, me talking to the camera, just saying hey to my audience, seeing how they're doing, that kind of thing. But a lot of times the copy, so the words I'm writing are in real time, but the photo or the video to match it is maybe from a prior time. So this has just honestly made it more doable for me to share stories, because if I share Ask Me a Question, for example, I'm using a photo from who knows when. If it's wedding related, I'm using a wedding photo. If it's personal related, I'm using a photo from another time. So it really just depends, and for me, stories are a lot more fun and have a lot more engagement. So this is just a fun way that I like to just interact with my people, see how they're doing, to know them a little bit. But to me, stories is also just a really great way to start to infuse your brand voice, what you care about. You may not necessarily be doing this in every single post or reel, because maybe you're trying to educate, share tips, inspire, share advice, and things like that, which is great. But in stories, you can definitely share more about maybe your heart behind certain things or something you've worked on, and then share more about why you value that certain thing. And really, I think the brand starts to build here, because it's not just about showing your face and talking about yourself, and that's how you build your brand. Of course, people need to feel like they know you. I am not discrediting that by any means, but I do think that sharing your voice, your values, what you care about, and who you want to serve and why, that is what makes everyone different. That's what makes me different. If you're watching this video, that makes you different. And so the more we talk about that, and that why and that mission is so much more valuable than showing your face constantly, but without any intention and without any clear message. You can show your face a lot all the time, but if you don't have a clear message and you don't have intention and you don't have a manner of sharing things that's very unique to you, you don't necessarily have a very strong brand. So I say that because I don't want you to feel pressured to have to post your face every single day to feel like you're building your audience, you're building your brand. You can do this in a way that still feels authentic and genuine to you, but you can use your words and your messaging and sharing about the why behind what you do. And all of those things are building blocks, building a brand that is strong and recognizable. Okay, so there is so much more I could say about this, but I'm going to just make some more videos. I just wanted to get you started with just some inspiration, maybe a new way of thinking about things. If you're just feeling burnt out and done with Instagram, and you feel like you need to show up, but you're just kind of fed up and don't want to feel pressured to have to do this in a way that doesn't feel good for you. So just to recap, as far as Reels goes, the goal here is to batch as much of this as you can. So B-roll clips of you working, as well as ideas and thoughts for how you want to pair that reel with text and ideas that match it, with captions and text that you want to layer with that reel. So the second is to, again, start to organize your post, go back to your albums for the last quarter, the last year if you've never done this, and just start to pick and choose. Again, 5 images, just start with 5 and just go through all of those galleries and just start to pick them. Once you've done that, organize them in a folder, and then use Planoly later, or Plan, or any other social media tool you want to use to start organizing those. And then as far as the captions goes for those posts, you can pick again from that notes folder of ideas that you have as far as ideas for captions to pair with that feed post. And you can even use something you've used already with a reel, but maybe just format it differently. So maybe more of a paragraph style versus a list style, or maybe a little bit more text or a bit less text. But really, a lot of times you have to reiterate things anyway for clients to really understand them and for them to really click in their minds. So you really don't have to be coming up with new content topics from scratch all the time. I have maybe 30 ideas that I kind of rephrase, reuse, and just kind of keep on posting about, because they're things that I think are important, they're things that matter to me. And really, part of having a strong brand anyway is that you are using consistent messaging. I don't mean to just bore your audience with the same stuff all the time, but that you're sharing things that you care about and it's consistent. It's things you've said already, it's things that you believe in, so you talk about over and over, and that is fine. That really helps things actually click with people. So don't be afraid to reuse ideas. Maybe don't copy and paste word for word, but you can definitely rephrase this in a way that you can be able to use over and over. Again, people aren't paying attention as closely as you think, so don't be too worried if you've already talked about your 10 favorite venues in your city. Guess what? You can make it a reel, and then in 3 weeks, you can make it a post. Totally okay. Stories are such a great way to boost your engagement so that your feed posts also receive more engagement as well. And I've seen this personally when I post on stories more. I feel like my feed posts, my reels definitely get a lot more engagement. So a way you can do this if you don't want to feel tethered to your phone all the time having to post on stories is to just batch some of this content. So if you naturally would share about maybe working at your desk or making coffee or hanging out with your family, I'm not saying to be disingenuous and say that that's what you're doing right that second, but if you need a photo to pair with real life that you are writing, you can absolutely use a photo from the past. I use wedding photos all the time, or brand photos for my brand clients to pair with text about maybe whatever's happening that week, or whatever I'm working at my desk. I might just snap a photo of my desk, or I might use one I took the other day. Just again, that's just real life for how I actually get to post on stories most days a week. And then if I do feel like I have a little bit more time and I want to post something more in the moment, then there's absolutely some more margin for that because I didn't feel like I was glued to my phone all week. So I really hope this is helpful if you're just feeling a little burnt out with showing up on Instagram and you want some new ideas to make this a little more sustainable for you. I'm really just sharing what's worked for me, and I have a lot more Instagram videos I would love to share as well. So if you like this video, definitely subscribe, and I will be here sharing new videos every week.